Don't say if only and why. Imam Haddad said, if only and why and how are the speech of the fool who objects to Allah. And he said, Imam Haddad, in this poem, if you have ease from saying if only and why, you will succeed. So what did the Prophet teach us to say? Say Allah decrees and does as he wills. Jalla Jalalu wa ta'ala fi ula. And it also comes in a hadith that good is in treasures, and treasures have keys. How excellent it is for a good slave who Allah makes a key to good and a lock from evil, and woe to a man, a slave who Allah makes a key to evil and a lock from good, and woe to the one who says why and how, meaning objecting to Allah's decree. He said, you're a slave, worship the divine, all you and all creatures are slaves, and the Lord does as he wills. Your concern and objection do not benefit, so take advantage of tranquility. And Imam Haddad in this poem, he says, take advantage of your time and be at ease from saying or thinking if only why, and you will succeed, triumph. You'll have felicity, and you'll take advantage of your time. Take advantage what was easily facilitated in your time. You'll take advantage of the good of your time today, and don't neglect the good you have today by worrying about tomorrow. And we ask Allah to give us an increase in every virtue or merit. And that is his commentary, I believe, on the poem. And he's asked them to begin reading the Aphorisms of Ibn Atta'illah as-Sakandari. So the commentator, Sheikh Barras, rahimahullah, commenting on the Aphorisms of Ibn Atta'illah, he said, the meanings of this aphorism that he is commenting on are exactingly explained by knowing, or they're exactingly attained by knowing the people of elevated states and celestial character, heavenly character. They praised themselves and were praised, and that did not cause them to retract. Rather, the praise that occurred to them increased them in gratitude. And they know the harm of flattery. For those who still have vision of the creation and who are veiled by their own ego. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the Prophet ﷺ refrained from flattery or praise of some. And he would sometimes desist from praising people based on the states of those who are being praised. And the people of perfect certitude and those who have arrived at high states and they're grounded in elevated states, the Prophet ﷺ praised them in their presence, like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq when he said, you are not of those who do that, meaning lowering your garment out of conceit. That's narrated in the Sahih of al-Bukhari when Abu Bakr's izar was low. And other than that, of the favors and merits or distinctions and merits of Abu Bakr, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. And the Prophet ﷺ also praised Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu when he said, Shaitan travels on other than your path. And that is a great merit, or other than that, of great merits. And the Prophet ﷺ praised Ali when he said, you with respect to me are like Harun with respect to Moses. And he praised Uthman by giving him the glad tidings, the good news of paradise, and other than that. And he praised a group of the elect of the Sahaba, like Ubay bin Ka'b, when he said to him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, which verse is greater in the books of Allah? And now the Habib Omar is commenting on this meaning. He said the author mentioned, may Allah be well pleased with him, that people have differing states in their being praised. Some of them are, and this is the author, he said, some of them are the abstinent from the dunya, and some of them are the knowers of Allah, and some of them are the common Muslims. When they are flattered, it harms them. It might cause them to be conceited or deluded or complacent and in their spiritual travel, or cause them to dissimulate seeking the favor of those who praise them, or show enmity towards those who insult them or criticize them. And he said, so there are harms in flattery. He said, as for the knowers of Allah, they see the Lord, and he is the one who moves the tongues of his slaves, either by praise or by criticism and insult. And there's no prophet except there are those who insulted him and criticized him as a trial to him by Allah, and to raise the pure, and as a trial for the heedless. Allah Ta'ala, Allah said it's like this: there was no prophet messenger who came before you except they said that he was a sorcerer or insane. And they said to one of the knowers of Allah, people said, you're a sorcerer. He said, you really heard that? They said, yes. He prostrated out of gratitude. He said, I thanked Allah because people criticized me with the same criticisms they said of prophets. They said prophets are sorcerers and insane. They made that allegation. He said, so that means I'm traveling the pathway of the prophets. La ilaha illallah. He forbade us that we praise something. Excuse me. The Prophet ﷺ forbade us to insult people, criticize about people, things that in a way that is outside of the Sharia. Insulting a Muslim is corruption. And the Prophet ﷺ also forbade us from backbiting and defamation. And he said, people are of different states. However, generally leaving flattery is better. He said, however, there are specific circumstances where in praise there is benefit for the one that is praised and the one praising. And Imam al-Ghazali, he mentioned the details of that in the Revival of the Religious Sciences, the benefits that may occur for the one that is praising and the one being praised, and the types of harms that may occur for both the praiser and the praised, and what's devoid of any harms and is purely good is like Allah praising the prophets, or the prophets praising those who deserve it of their companions. Allah Ta'ala said, he said, those we carried on the ark with Nuh, and he was a grateful slave. And Allah said, we found him patient. What an excellent slave he is. He's one who often returns to Allah. And Allah mentioned Ibrahim and Ishaq, those of various virtues and insights. We made them pure in the mention of the abode, and we've made them from our select righteous slaves. And similarly mentioned in the book Ibrahim, he was a true saint and a prophet. And he said he was, and I mentioned Ibrahim, he was of pure intentions and he was a prophet. Mentioned Ismail, he was of a true prophet and he was a messenger and a prophet. And mentioned in the book Idris, he was a Siddiq and a prophet when we raised him to a high station. The Prophet ﷺ said all of this praise. And the Prophet praised a group of his companions. And he said also, warning someone who flattered one of the companions, you've severed the neck of your brother or cut the neck of your brother. So he praised Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, saying, you're not one who does that, lower his garment in conceit. He said, you're not someone who does that. And he said to Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab, I swear by the one in whose hand is my soul, you don't travel any path except that Shaitan travels a different path. He said to Ali, would you be pleased to be with respect to me as Harun was with respect to Musa, except there's no prophet after me. And some of the hypocrites, they wanted to cause harm in the year of the Battle of Tabuk. And one of them is they were going to ambush the Prophet ﷺ during his journey. And some of the other harm, some of them would remain in Medina and cause sedition. So he left Sayyidina Ali to protect Medina. And Sayyidina Ali wanted to go. And people spoke ill of him. They said, he left you behind with the women and the children. So he went to the messenger. And he said, look, and he followed the messenger of Allah. He said, aren't you pleased to be with respect to me like Harun was with respect to Musa? I left you with my household, with my elect and the people in Medina, protecting them, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And those hypocrites couldn't cause any harm with Sayyidina Ali there. Karramallahu wajha wa radiyallahu anhu. And there's a group of hypocrites who tried to knock the Prophet ﷺ off a mountain. And Allah protected him and informed the Prophet ﷺ of their very names. And he concealed that. And the Prophet ﷺ said to Sayyidina Uthman, they gave him tidings of paradise. And the Prophet ﷺ gave tidings of paradise to a group of Jannah. And he said to Sayyidina Ali, which verse is greater? And he said, which is the greatest verse in the Quran? He said, Ayatul Kursi. He said, you have knowledge of the revelation. And he's another companion, when he flattered a companion in his presence, you've cut his neck, you've cut his throat. So the Prophet ﷺ would praise companions at times, and other times he would desist from that. He would refrain from that. And he said, when praise comes from the pious, what's concerned is, like the Prophet ﷺ said to the elect of the Muslims, you are the witnesses. If you praise people, it indicates their righteousness. And if you blame them, and it indicates their wickedness, and we seek refuge in Allah, that is for the elect. So then that brings us to the next aphorism. And Habib Omar's mentioning it. When the author Ibn Ata'illah, and Habib Omar's just iterated his aphorism. When you are in a state that if you are given, the gift gives you a spiritual expanse, a happiness. And if things are withheld from you, that withholding gives you a spiritual contraction, like a worry, a sadness, anxiety. Ibn al-Tawla said, take that as an indication of your childishness spiritually, and you're not being true in slavehood, in your servitude to Allah. So the commentator, he said, this is a scale by which you could know your state. Someone who has sincere counsel to himself and is not arrogant, he will be fair and honest when he witnesses these indications and signs in himself. He said, so let a servant be mindful of Allah in making claims to knowledge of the divine oneness and being pure in slavehood to Allah, servitude. Let the slave ask Allah and return to Allah in refuge, that Allah make him truly realized and make him become one of the people of nearness. And because the slave has not left the ulterior motives of his lower self and is not pure in slavehood to his Lord. So when you are given, when a servant is given, when a servant is given the motive that his lower self desires and attains its hopes, those gifts make him happy, not the giver. It's not the giver that's making them happy. And when there is a withholding from you, right, of the motives of your lower self, and you didn't attain your expedited needs, and that withholding causes you to retract. There's a spiritual contraction, sadness, gloom, what have you. And your contraction is not from the withholder, meaning the slave is not relating to the giver and the withholder, but rather he's focused on the gift and the withholding, meaning things that are created. Take that as an indication, if you're in this state, of your childishness among the people of Allah, meaning I'm not mature yet among the people of Allah. Or another way you could say it, and the word I'm translating is tufuliya, but from the meanings of tatafful is someone who is an uninvited guest to a banquet, and they're not from the rightful attendees. So he's saying at tufuli, this one who is not truly of the people and the attendees of this banquet, he is the one that comes to the banquets without being invited, and Habib Omar will comment and explain this. When you are in a state that when you're given, the gift itself makes you happy and you forgot the giver, and when there's withholding from you, there's a contraction and you forgot the withholder. He said, take that as an indication of you're not being of those who are truly invited to the banquets of being true with Allah. You are in that company without reality. You're like someone who's an uninvited guest to the banquet. So this person is a tufayli. He said and take it as a lack of your honesty in your slavehood to Allah. So if someone's true in slavehood, the person is opened, expanded, and contracted by Allah, for Allah's sake. For his sake, there's an expanse, and for his sake, there's a contraction. Contract, if one disobeyed him, you'll be with Allah. So connect to al-qabid al-basit, the one who causes contraction and expansion, not because of a gift from anyone, a deprivation from anyone. Why didn't they give me? Why did they put so-and-so ahead of me? Cause me to be behind? You saw the action by other than Allah and attributed it to the creator. Know that Allah is the one who gives and the one who expands. Whatever Allah expands, what Allah expands from the creation, no one can withhold that. The common people in Tarim say no slave gives to another slave, meaning they are not independent. Right? If Allah wills, a slave will give you something. If Allah does not, they will not. Some of the pious, he said to a person who had a governmental responsibility, he went and he didn't give to him. He knocked at the door. The man didn't open. He said Allah didn't will, so he left. So then the man changed his mind and said, bring him back. And then he said, see, when you surrendered to Allah, Allah gave you that. And another, he asked someone to help him with one of his needs. He said, if you fulfill this, Allah is the one who is the one fulfilling this, and the doer, and gratitude is showed to Allah. And I thank you as well. And if you do not give me this, then, excuse me. The first, you're excused. He said, if you do not give me this, Allah is the one who's withheld it. And you're excused. Excuse me. Thanked in the first one, excused in the second one. However, if someone is heedless, they say, this person gave me, this person withheld, this person put me forward, this person held me back. He said, it's your Lord, not the people. People are tools beneath the divine majesty. All of them are slaves beneath the decree, the order of a master. None of them departing from that. He said, you should be honest. When you, and someone who's sincere to himself, he will be fair when he sees these indications. He should ask Allah and return seeking refuge and ask Allah to make him true in being, make him realize in being true to Allah. He said, when you attain the motives of your nafs and what you want, he said, if that makes you happy, then the gift has made you happy, not the giver. And if he withholds, that saddens you, it's the withholding, not the withholder, that has given you a contraction. Take that as an indication of your lack of aptitude. He said, like someone who's an uninvited guest to a wedding feast. They go as if they've been invited. They sneak in. And then he said, so if that person sneaks in, they'll serve him either out of generosity or out of shyness. They're ashamed not to serve someone who showed up. He said, someone who's given in shame, they receive it, and the people loathe them, the souls loathe them. And they said, someone who receives something by shaming the one who gives them is like someone who takes it with a sword. And being true in slavehood, the person who's true is entirely engrossed in reflection upon studying the attributes of Allah. So if they are made happy, it's from the effects of the saying of Allah, Al-Basit. And if they have a retraction, they see it as traces of the name Al-Qabid. Habib Ali al-Habshi, one of the students went to Habib Ali al-Habshi. I haven't attained anything, and I haven't attained any stations, and people arrived at your names and attained righteous. Everyone, and he said, everyone who came to you was given, and no one had a dry pasture except me. So he corrected it. He said, "Oh soul, do not," and he said, "Do not lose hope. And if that gift is delayed, don't let that cause you to lose hope." And he said, all gifts have their time. And he said, so be comforted by Allah's withholding, because being pleased is the attribute of someone virtuous. He said, so awaken from the sleep of heedlessness. And he said, oh my Lord, I have a good intention that is a good opinion of you that's abundant. I move with it before me and it walks with me. Everyone who hopes for your grace receives rain. Far be it from you, O Allah, that my pasture remain dry. Glory to the one who gives and withholds. And they're comforted by Allah's withholding, just as they're comforted by Allah's giving, because they know Allah is the giver and the withholder. That's the people who are true. La ilaha illallah. They remain at his door, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not sever us by paying attention to other than him, and may Allah make our hearts turn to him in every state. And then he asked the singer to sing. That's the end of his commentary, likely to be the end. Inshallah, you all can listen to the poem that's being sung.
المجتبى المصطفى السيد العربي لخصها الله من نور بسر خفي ما تحتمله العقول للقاصرة يا غبي ما دونوا عشر في الكتب يكفي المعادي قصاص حمالة الحطب والله ما في هوى المختار من كذب عندي إذا ما ذكر طه الحبيب النبي أحس بلوعة كبدي بها تنضبي إذا دهتني الدواهي أقبل اليثربي بجيش صمصوم يرفع كل ما حل بي يا سيد الرسل يا أكرم من هو بي وحبي أدرك بغارتك زاد الورق في اللهب يا سيد الرسل يا من جاز للحجب كل فرح بك تلاقاك الملك والنبي، وانت على مستوى التخصيص في طربي. كل فرح بك تلاقاك الملك والنبي، أن العلي قد تلاقى البدر بالرحب. كلين من جانبه يقول جل يثربي، وانت على مستوى التخصيص في طربي. الله بما تقصد خصصك بالطلب، في حال فيه النبي قد قام بالأدب. في ليلة قد شرح العلم في الكتب، عسى بأسرارها مولاي يلطف بي. ليلة شريفة بساطناها على مطلبي، يرفع بها الله عنا عاجلا كربي. في دائم الوقت ما هرجس وبالنبي، المجتبى المصطفى السيد العربي، صلوا عليه.
جنة القرب فيها